for joining us for part 2 of our summer reading program, Grab and Go Bags. This is week 2 for teens, and we are making battering rams. I wanted to give a little bit of the story about battering rams, but mostly they were used in medieval era warfare as siege weapons. They were used to knock down doors or walls or things that you needed to get through in time of castles and storming the castle. So this one is a challenge, and there's one main challenge, and we're going to design and build a battering ram. It needs to do, first, it has to have the ram suspended in the air, and the ram has to swing back and forth and knock down an object. And then finally, it needs to roll. The whole thing needs to be able to roll backwards and forwards. So those are our 3 things. We need to make sure that our battering ram does all 3 of those things. And here on the side are 2 of the examples that we made here. So in your bag, you're going to have a handful of things. We have popsicle sticks in 3 different sizes. We have a little thing of liquid glue. We have a paper tube. This is what our ram is going to be. We have round objects for wheels, and so here we provided these. If you have other things like bottle caps that would work, that feel free to use something if you have something at home that you think would work better. We have paper clips listed, and I have some here, though unfortunately it looks like they were not able to make it into the bags. So here we have 2 different types of string, a thin string and a thick string, some construction paper, and some sand. So the sand is going to be used as a weight. You can actually set that aside. All we're going to end up doing is putting it just like this inside of the ram so that there's some weight to it as we try and get it to swing back and forth. And that's going to sit aside for now. Until then, we need to figure out what we're going to do. So I have paper clips here. And so I put a heads up. Heads up that the hardest part is going to be connecting the wheels to the frame. The second hardest part is making sure that the string is long enough so the battering ram has room to swing back and forth, which is why we have different size paper clips here. So I'm going to design it just really quickly. It's going to have 4 sticks. It'll be shaped more or less like that. This is going to be my basic frame right there. Somehow it needs to have string that will allow the ram to swing both ways. And it needs wheels so that it can roll. So our next step, after we have our basic design, is to draft our battering ram. And we're going to do that on this grid paper here. These are the 3 size craft sticks that I have available. I'm mostly going to use these 2. And you can use whichever 3 you want. The thicker one will of course make you a stronger battering ram, but do be careful that you don't make it too wide or too narrow or too long. So I'm going to use the smaller ones here, because I'm going to have 4 sticks sticking up, and here, and So I'm going to make 2 frames that are going to be mostly rectangular, and then I'm going to use the longer ones here, there, here, and then there. And I'll use the longer 4 to connect my 2 square frames. I'm also going to need the string, and I'm going to try and anchor my string from both top corners. And my ram will sit here in the center. It needs to be able to swing both ways because I want it to knock something down. And then the last step is going to be the wheels. They're going to need to be anchored at the bottom on each corner of the frame. And that is something I haven't decided yet. So how to anchor wheels. And this is my basic design. So I'm going to use these ones here, 4 of them on the front and 4 on the back. And then these longer ones to attach it together. Being careful because these are obviously longer than my ram. And so I need to make sure that I don't make my frame too long so it just swings back and forth on the inside of the frame. So I'm gonna go and start gluing these together. So I glued my front and back frames together, and I ended up needing to add an extra stick on the top and bottom because what I noticed is when I was going to start gluing my frame together, I just didn't have enough for it to stick to. So my next step is going to be to glue the longer sticks to my frame so that I can have that put together. The other thing I'm going to do is, this is my ram made out of this tube, and I took my bag of sand and I kept all the sand in there just so it made less of a mess, and I glued it on the inside of the tube. The other thing I did is I took 2 strings, and they went right through, and I had to glue them at the top or the bottom. And all this is going to do is it's going to let the ram swing from side to side, which it's going to do inside the frame. The one thing I'm a little worried about is that my ram is going to be a little too short, and so I have these 2 pieces of brown paper, and I'm going to make cones to go on the outside. So all I'm going to do is cut off a piece to make mostly a square. I'm going to go down to the middle, and I'm going to cut to the center of the page. And then I'm going to take one corner and I'm going to twist it, 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 and it's going to make a cone. And I'm going to, there we go. I'm going to glue this cone to the front and back of my ram because I have 2 pieces of paper. So I'm going to make another one. And it will allow me to have a little extra length on my ram. Awesome. So I now have my frame put together. You see those 4 short sticks that I used? The doubles are on the bottom and the top, and the 4 longer sticks are on the sides. And then here I have my ram put together. The sand is on the inside, and then I have 2 cones on either side just to give it a bit of length. I did have to cut little notches when I glued on my cones just to make sure that I had full use of my string. And so my next step is to start assembling and determining how the wheels are going to go on. So I have 4 wheels, and I need 2 in the front and 2 in the back. Remember that this doesn't really need to turn. Your only parameters is that it goes forwards and backwards. So one of the things that I can do is use another craft stick, and I can anchor the wheels onto the bottom. that will give it that ability to roll and make use of its wheels. So the only conflict there is trying to figure out how to not let the wheels get stuck together, so I'm gonna have to think of something to separate them. My other decision here is, where am I tying my strings? So here is my ram inside of its frame. I need it to swing both ways, so I need to have enough string to move, but short enough that it sits in the air, right? We don't want it sitting on the ground. That doesn't help anybody. I think that my best decision is going to be to tie it in a V. So I'm probably going to tie it there and around. And right now I'm just going to use a bow, because if I don't like it or it didn't work, I need to be able, oops, there we go. I need to be able to take it down pretty easily. So I want it to be pretty even on the inside in terms of how much string is on either side. And then before I lose it, I'm gonna tie that bow. Cool. And then, let's see, here we go. It is a little too long, so I'm gonna try that a little tighter. So I'm gonna try and even that out as best I can. There we go. And tie it up. This all takes a little trial and error. The hardest part for me right now is balancing it, because I do still need it to swing, but I need it to swing forwards. And if one of the strings is longer than the other one, it's going to swing sideways and just hit the frame. So I'm gonna play with this for a second, and then we'll come back and talk about wheels. Okay, I have here my ram suspended in my frame. It is tied up here by knots. If you notice, it is hanging in the air. So right there, it's not touching the bottoms, it's not touching the sides, it's suspended in the air. I will say, I had to go get someone to help me tie these knots. You might need an extra hand. Just a fair warning. And so if we think about our original parameters, the ram has to be suspended in the air, it has to be able to swing back and forth, and it has to be able to knock down an object. So I have right here a paper towel tube, and I'm gonna put it here, and holding the ram, let's see, yay, it knocked it down. So those are my first two parameters, and so the last step is it has to be able to roll backwards and forwards. No one wanted to lift these things, though I will say in the beginning of rams you would lift it and carry it, and eventually they put wheels on it. So these four wheels I'm going to put a craft stick through, and I'm going to glue that craft stick here in the front, and then again in the back. That way it does have wheels to help it roll. And we're almost set, so let me get these glued on and let's see how it turns out. So now I have my wheels on. You notice that it rolls on its wheels, forwards and backwards. It's still suspended in the air. And just in case anyone has options other than these wheels, or you want to try something different, We do also have this example. These are just really stiff pieces of foam core. You can also use bottle caps if you have those. And this one also, notice, rolls forwards and backwards. And so that here, this is our final battering ram. It is suspended in air, it swings back and forth, it did knock something down, and it rolls. Happy learning!